So I was watching a video on YouTube that David Green put out, and David Green used to be the co-host on Bigger Pockets. He now has a podcast that he puts out on his YouTube channel, and he gives a lot of great information. Anyway, so he was talking with a guest on his podcast about Airbnb and how over the last, I don't know, a few years, Airbnb's really shifted and not in a good way, and how it's really had a negative effect on hosts. And so it's hard to be a host. And one of the reasons is because the balance of power between guests and hosts has really shifted. Before, the hosts had a lot of power, had a lot of ability to, provide a product. And if the person didn't like it, well, then, they didn't like it. But it wasn't this situation where the guest was able to put a bad review and then you'd be deplatformed and taken off the Airbnb platform, or your property was just buried in the algorithm because one person didn't like their stay. But now it feels very much that way. And he talks about how guests came over and they saw some dirt and then it got wet and then it became a little bit of mud, but it was really small. But then they thought it was black mold, and then they called him and said, hey, you have black mold. He sends people over there to try to fix everything. And then not only that, but then they say, hey, we all got sick and because of this thing. And then he was actually deplatformed. They took him off of the Airbnb platform because of that situation. And he's saying that, it wasn't black mold, wasn't it all black mold. And these guests really wanted this big refund. And because, we tried to accommodate them, but then ultimately they got him deplatformed for, I think, an entire month. And they missed out on thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue because these people were upset and then they complained to Airbnb. Well, this is the problem. The problem is, as a host, your goal is to provide a clean, safe space for people to come and enjoy themselves. And you also want to be paid for what you're providing, which makes sense, right? Well, a lot of times if the guest comes there, their expectations of what the property should be has just gotten up, higher and higher and higher over the years. I remember at the very beginning, we would go and stay in an Airbnb and it was just like staying at your friend's house. They had clothes in the closets, they had, clothes in the drawers, and just everything was just they cleaned up, hopefully, but it felt more like you were staying at a buddy's house while they were out of town. And that is nothing like what it is today. The expectation is that you have this, home decor cover photo of this perfect house with everything being perfect. And if it's not, if I look underneath your couch and I see, a little dust bunny, or if I see a hair at the bottom of the shower drain, then I'm going to let you know that it wasn't cleaned and that I don't feel good here. I don't feel safe and I want a full refund, but I also want to stay in your property. Does that sound kind of weird? Well, that's kind of how it's become. So not great. Anyway, he's talking about this, and as he's talking about this in the video, I think to myself, you know what? I think I solved the problem. I think I know what will solve this problem. So this is how it goes. After the guest leaves, they're able to leave you a review, right? So what if the guest were to leave a 3-star review or lower, then Airbnb reaches out saying, the guest left a 3-star review or a 2-star or even a 1-star review. These are the 3 things that they stated in their review was wrong with the property. So now you as the host have the ability to respond. And the response can go like this. You can say, well, actually, those things are there's nothing wrong with those things. Here are some pictures showing that there's nothing wrong with those things. But you have an opportunity to create a game plan. So let's say there is something that was wrong with those things. You say, you know what? They complained that the mattress had a spring that came out, something that we weren't aware of. So what we've done in order to rectify the situation is we have changed out the mattress. They say that the kitchen wasn't clean, and so we've done some further training for our staff to make sure that they're cleaning the kitchen up to the highest standards, right? So you come up with just a plan to address those 3 things that they'd mentioned. And so what Airbnb can do is they take that review and they remove it from all of your reviews, and they hold it at bay. They hold it over here to the side And then you have a 6-month period of time where, as long as you don't get another review, kind of stating one of those three things that the previous people that left the review didn't like, then that review that they left goes away. So basically, this is like a second chance where you have to have more than just one person that states something that is wrong with your property, and they have to state the exact same thing that's wrong, so that it isn't just a one person's word against your word. But if you have two independent guests that come to the property and they're both stating the same thing that's wrong, well, then now this looks more like a pattern. Now, if you as the host are unwilling to, take care of or change the things that these people are not liking about their stay, then it basically says that you may not be a good fit for Airbnb. But if you just have one person that comes and says, hey, if you don't give me a refund, I'm going to state these things are wrong, and then you're going to, it's going to hurt you, and then I'll just try to get my refund through Airbnb anyway. So if you have somebody like that has that type of attitude, then this may be a fantastic way of making it so that hosts don't feel like super anxious, like, oh, I have to bend over backwards, give them a full refund, give them all of these extras just so they don't leave a bad review. You see what I'm saying? So that's the idea. And I think that if Airbnb were to implement this, that this would be so much better, because this way the hosts aren't living in fear that one bad guest is going to ruin the entire experience for them as a host, or is going to ruin their business. So anyway, what do you think about this idea that rather than posting and having it negatively affect your property, that bad review, anything a 3-star below, is held over here, and as long as you take care of the issue, then that review goes away? Tell me your thoughts. I'd appreciate it.